It was a very interesting process to adapt the L'Oréal way of working to this new type of factories, and to also adapt the factory to the process of the big, huge L'Oréal, 3 continents, 60 countries, 47 brands, etc., etc. So this was the idea of being at the head of this website factory, and it was a very interesting time.
Hello and welcome to the 25 Days of Transformation series, where we talk to industry experts and global brands about the highs and lows of digital transformation. We'll learn from real-world business examples, get first-hand industry insights from the digital experts, and we'll take a deep dive into what trends to look out for in the coming months. I'm Tizzy Philp, Strategic Content Lead here at Valtech, and I'm here to guide you through these conversations and to uncover the latest and greatest in digital. Today I'm joined, albeit remotely, by Anne Guichard, Global Chief E-commerce Officer at L'Oréal, formerly Managing Director of L'Oréal's website factory, and the topic we'll be focusing on today. Anne will be walking us through her experiences and explaining how the beauty leader has handled the various stages of digital transformation, including vitally how they underwent a full mindset change. For those listening, I should point out that L'Oréal's website factory has rolled out 11 masters, 300 websites, and is the largest cycle project across the world, so no small undertaking. Anne, we're very excited to have you here and welcome to the podcast.
Hello, nice to be with you today.
I wondered if we could start by asking you to tell us a little about your career and how you came to be head of the website factory at L'Oréal.
I know nothing was written before, let's say, because I had a long career at L'Oréal, 25 years, and among those 25 years, I had 23 years dedicated to business. So working at in countries, at marketing, and then in general management, in France, abroad, then coming back to France, and always, dealing with this subsidiary, fighting for the figures from day to night, with your commercial teams, going to see retailers, etc. So it was more this kind of job I had. And suddenly, mid 40s, I had a sort of crisis and decided perhaps to see something else. I opened my chakra and dig into what could I do to change. And after a very interesting discussions with the HR of L'Oréal, they proposed me to enter the digital team. At the beginning, I thought it was a strange idea because I had no technical background. But in fact, they said, it's great to have people with technical backgrounds in this team, but we also need people who have a deep knowledge of what L'Oréal is, because it helps connecting, the new digital departments to the L'Oréal world. So I accepted to take this website factory. It was a great shock, to be honest, at the beginning, because, for example, in the first meeting, I understood no word, not a word was a word of my language. It was IT world. I was entering a complete new world, speaking about DevOps, Bitbucket, and, Quality Gates, and SonarCube. And, it was completely something new to me. And after, let's say, 1 month, 2 months, you take your notes. You are a student. It was so great to be back to student times. Then I was able not to, of course, code. It was not my aim. My name was not to code with my teams, but to be able to understand how would we take this great factory, this technical little plane, and to make it land on the, let's say, the plane carrier, le porte-avions, as we say in French. That was L'Oréal, this huge thing that was L'Oréal. And we had this little, very technical, modern warplane, and we had to make it land. And I was here for this, in fact. And it was a very interesting process to adapt the L'Oréal way of working to this new type of factories, and to also adapt the factory to the process of the big, huge L'Oréal, 3 continents, 60 countries, 47 brands, etc., etc. So this was the idea of being at the head of this website factory, and it was a very interesting time that we had together with the team.
Yeah, it sounds it, and quite a journey to get there, but no doubt all previous experience making your role there so much more relevant. And I think just to add some more context for the listeners, how do you create such a factory? Maybe you could tell us just a little small background about
Mm.
what we were dealing with there.
Taking making a step forwards, I would say perhaps there is two main phases in the building, in the creation of such a factory. First, you have a technical phase. You have to build a technical stack to decide that you will choose a site core, that you would choose this or this vendor. At that time, we chose to work with Valtech, for example. You have to choose the DevOps organization, all the things that is around how will it work technically. But it's only the first phase. And many people forget that you have the second phase. The second phase I talked about in the previous question is how do you adapt this great thing, this great technical thing, to the L'Oréal way of working, to the needs of the brands? How are you sure that your clients, so my clients are the brands of L'Oréal, they find it easier to work with you than to work with the little agencies they used to have been working with for years, at the end of the corner. So you have to rethink it and to convince. And there is a huge phase of, and it's perhaps as difficult as the first phase. The second phase of adapting it to this group is, I think, perhaps the most difficult and perhaps the most underestimated, because there is no recipe for everybody. Every group has to find its own way. If tomorrow I would propose to be the same for Danone, perhaps the first phase would be okay because I would get inspired by what I did for L'Oréal. But the second phase, it would have to be completely adapted to the organization of Danone. How people work with zones, with division. Do they speak together? Who is the head of which? Who is accountable for what? And this phase is really important. It has to be taken into account.
Interestingly, you're the second person in this second client, I should say, in this interview series to have mentioned exactly that. And as you say, it's the most unexpected element when you're going into a digital transformation. You almost don't realize how impactful that organizational change is going to be and how much thought and process needs to go into transforming it. And in our experience of digital transformation, it can often highlight a skills gap in particular. Is that something that came into play for you at L'Oréal when you started the process?
Yeah, of course. Before me, there was a team that created, let's say, technically this factory. So they were the one who, let's say, created the concept of it. And we get on well, and we still have phone calls together, and we respect each other because they did the work I could not do. It's choosing this highly technical things around DevOps. I would not have done this anyway. And I did what they could not do is, with my knowledge of L'Oréal, adapting it. So we had the agile coach at the beginning at the website factory to be sure that, we worked well with our vendors and our brands to be sure that we were completely aligned on the process to work on especially on the build. We are completely agile on the build. So we needed someone to coach us, and we had an agile coach. And at the beginning, when you spoke about recruiting an agile coach, the guy were not exactly knowing if it was for the gym or if it was for the website factory. It was funny. It's and what is great is that they got used to it like this. With the help of agencies, with the help of the guy, who were coming from agencies that were at the website factory head at that time, etc. They recruited the best guys. And to be honest, today, 3 years after, most of those persons that were recruited at that time are still there. Now you have phases in such a factory. You have, the phase of the creation, building the thing, building all the logic of the stack. And then you have the middle maturity and maturity. And for all those steps, you need different profiles. For example, at one point we said, perhaps we don't need anymore an agile coach. So we decided to do the same work with another company, but it was a good decision because, in fact, we thought, no, now people got used to it. Most of our brands are now, briefed. They understood what it is about. And so we said, okay, let's pick some other expertise we need. For example, when you go from build to localization and then to run, you enter a complete product phase, product management, and then you have releases every month. thousands of releases for your 11 brands in your 60 countries, etc., etc. And here you say, guys, I absolutely need a release manager, and I absolutely need a quality manager. So we decided, and we were very agile, changing slowly the competencies from the one at the beginning to the one of a mature factory, like 300 websites around the world, etc., etc. Because it was done very smoothly, and L'Oréal is a big company, so we had also opportunities for some people to find other jobs in some other departments, going to the business, etc. So it was great also to see them evolving, and with in their backpack all this experience of the website factory.
Mm. And with that agile transformation, I guess you feel that L'Oréal is now working much more collaboratively than it was before in that sense.
We spend a lot of time with our brands to explain them what was agile, because of course everybody speaks about agile, but nobody understands that it's a very rigid organization and you have to follow the rules. So it's quite funny that the adjective agile, especially in French, has nothing to do with the agile ways of working. So we spent a lot of time, coaching them, teaching them the rules. And in fact, at the beginning, everybody was not perfect. As in every factory at the beginning, we had some fails. We learned happily a lot from those, and that's also the retro in agile. It's here for this. You learn a lot from your own errors, and you do not do them again. So and we had a sort of set of rules that would work in agile. And I had always this discussion with the brands, telling about Versailles. So Versailles, it's my typical speech. So I said, guys, we won't give you Versailles in 6 months. It's impossible. Nobody in the world will do. And if somebody tells he will do, they are lying. Nobody does Versailles in 6 months. So your website, and big brands like L'Oréal Paris, La Roche-Posay, big leaders, that said, no, I want a perfect website day one. And I had to teach them that it's not anymore what we will do. We will have an MVP day one. And an MVP, and then, of course, we enter a product mode, and we will enhance each month new features. But this, for a L'Oréal person, educated in the concept of excellence day one, is something you can't imagine. You can't imagine how difficult it is to say, I will renounce to this perfect day one, to a sort of not finished day one, which was for them, a sort of indecency. So we had to teach them and to say, if you refuse the laws, if you refuse the rules, in fact, we won't work with you. If you ask us 200 features in 6 months, in fact, we stay on the bench and we wait for you to decide, but we will never begin with a scope of 200 features. Let's make the squad begin, the squad with the Valtech team, with the L'Oréal team, with the creative agency team together in the room. Let's close the door, and let's them work on the feature they will choose for the MVP. It will be perhaps around 80 features. Let them work. No, it's not possible. I want 200. Okay, you follow the rules. I refuse to do your website. And I could only say this because I was also a member of L'Oréal. Imagine a small agency at the corner. They would have said, oh, yes, we will try. I said, no, we will fail together. You will fail, I will fail. So we won't do this. Let's choose the 80 features for the beginning of the website. It's like Versailles, You can have year one, la chambre du roi, et les grandes écuries. And don't worry, you will sell tickets with this. Millions of Chinese people will visit the Versailles with only those two big things. And year two, you can have la chambre du roi et le petit Trianon. And year three, you will have la Galerie des Glaces. And then it's total Versailles. But you will have your tickets sold during those 3 years. This is exactly what I want to do with you, with your website. And this took time, but at the end of the day, my biggest pride with the team, on Website Factory, of course, we have website and they are very performant, etc. But we made them understand that it's possible to have this, this excellence that is going through the months and through the years and not only day one. And I'm very happy and proud about this.
Well, two really pertinent things that you said. One, don't be afraid of failure. as soon as you embark on something like this, you need to have that test and learn approach. You need to take risks. You need to be daring, and you can't be afraid to fail. You have to try it out and see what works. And the second thing that you said is this organizational mindset shift. Again, we said it earlier, people go into something like this and they forget to take into account exactly what it's going to mean on a day-to-day level when you're talking with your teams, when you're talking about the kind of results that you're going to achieve or the KPIs that you might be able to meet. You have to realize that it will take time and it takes a lot of investment from everybody to make something like an agile process work and to get it up and running and working to achieve results. Knowing what you know now, do you think maybe you could have avoided some of the pitfalls that you came across earlier on in the process?
We had, before beginning the website factory, 400 websites around the world on different systems, different maintenance, built by different agencies, no coherence. And when we built this factory, of course, we are here to create the next generation of great websites for the next generation. But we were also asked to manage the legacy and to manage the run of the legacy. And suddenly, we were completely overwhelmed by 400 websites that we had to maintain, a bit to enhance, do the minimum until the next generation. And we were overwhelmed by thousands of bugs arriving from around the world. Our partner for maintenance was also completely lost in the diversity of what could happen in the L'Oréal world. Mm-hmm. So it was a few months where the team had to cope with this completely underestimated work. They had in mind only to build, to be ready for the next and the coming new builds. And they were completely focused on those thousands of countries, shouting at them because the maintenance was not perfect. They had no maintenance before, but suddenly they had one, and they suddenly understood that it was great, and they were shouting, and we had those remarks not very nice to us, etc. It was very painful moment. So when you have a new factory, be careful if you accept the legacy of the consequences. I never regretted to take the legacy because it was a sort of deal. We built a factory, and the factory is not for free, so you have to pay the guys, etc. And the deal was, but we take in charge of the legacy until we have the new website. So it was a good deal. I don't regret it, but never underestimate the quantity of work of taking those disparate things around the world. So this is perhaps the first pitfall I saw. And the second pitfall, at Valtech that we chose two partners to do this factory with us, Valtech and Photon. And I think it was a good decision not to have many, only two, very trustful. We build this together, we encourage together, we decide together the processes, etc. But we underestimated perhaps the ping pong between the two. And it was also something that at one point we said, okay, let's sit down together, us, the two partners, and let's find solutions for at every step, at the build phase, during the build phase, during the lock-up phase, during the run phase. Let's be sure that it's smooth for everybody and everybody has the information to have a smooth handover between the two. So it was something also that took time, but perhaps were also underestimated. Now it works, so we're very proud of it. But those are the two pitfalls I wanted to perhaps to share that are perhaps useful for other companies.
Absolutely, and good advice there. And I think, as a final question, perhaps, would there be any other advice that you'd have for companies of your scale, or perhaps even smaller companies who are embarking on their own digital transformation journey? What would be the key things that you would advise them?
When I look forward to what was done at L'Oréal and what were the key success factors, let's say, I would say first is have a clear strategy, a few words, a few figures. For example, at L'Oréal, we had this strategy you probably saw in newspapers because it was quite public. It was a 20, 50, 100. Well, now it changed a bit because the figures changed, but 20% e-commerce, 50% person that we would contact, and 100 love brands. And this shaped completely the strategy of every people in the company. You can't imagine, we were arriving in Korea for an e-visit, and the agenda is 20, 50, 100. So you have all the subjects under e-commerce. It shapes, it gives objective and priorities to everybody. So having a very clear, very simple strategy in a few sentences is so important to prioritize and to strategize. Second thing, I would say, internalize the expertise you think are so important for you for the future. I would speak, for example, about media. Treating the media, perhaps in some big countries, you need to internalize the competency because it's so important for the future. Third advice, perhaps, is it's upskilling. I would say upskilling, training people. One of the key success factors at L'Oréal is that it's not only the digital guys that were upskilled, etc. The whole company was upskilled. So we have everybody in this company, including the head of a country, has to follow upskilling sessions, etc. And at the end of each year, we have a sort of exam we call the CM1, and you have a note, and you can evaluate yourself and say, okay, I should work on this or this, and they provide you for more training on this to be sure that you have a deep knowledge of digital. You're not an expert. A country manager is not an expert, but you can have a discussion between the digital manager of a brand and the head of a country on, a 3P on an AMS on Amazon. Those technical words are known by everybody, and it becomes a common language, which is so important. Then I would perhaps finish by one thing that is a culture. Is there somewhere in your culture, the culture of your company, something around seizing what is new? We have at L'Oréal a sentence that was created by Dal. He was our boss many years ago, and he created this sentence, saisir ce qui commence, which could be translated by seize what is beginning. So we had this sort of ability at L'Oréal to always feel what is new and try to grab it and to make it real or to use it in some countries, etc. For example, take the example of live streaming. 1 or 2 years ago, we saw the first live streams in China, saying, what is that? It's crazy. This thing is becoming crazy. And now we know what live streaming has become. But at that time, it was like, how can we use it? How will we prepare our countries to accept this? Because it will become worldwide. And let's be the first to be able to grab this new trend, etc., etc. So this is also a question of culture, and work on the culture of your company, the way you recruit, the way you train people to be sure that they have this ability to feel what is new and to size it. Well, this is what I would share with you.
Excellent advice. Thank you. And I mentioned at the start of this, the podcast in the introduction, that you've now taken on a new role as Global Chief E-commerce Officer at L'Oréal. And what an exciting time to be taking on a role like that. So we wish you the very best of luck in everything that you do next.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, Anne. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
You've been listening to the 25 Days of Transformation series from Valtech Cafe. If you enjoyed this podcast, then why not subscribe and keep up to date with all of the episodes in this series and a whole host of insights from the Valtech Cafe back catalogue. And if you'd like more information about what we do or to get in touch, why not visit us at valtech.com to find out the details. Until next time, thanks for listening.